Jayvardy.
Jayvardy.
This Jayvardy.
Jayvardy. Thank you, Jayvardy.
Jayvardy. Oh, Jayvardy. Oh my gosh.
All right, welcome to the show. It's me, Hugh. It's Liquid Lunch on a Tuesday. First Liquid Lunch of September. How does it feel, Jen?
Way too hot to be September. That's my final word on the subject. I'm waiting for winter, or at least a nice fall.
You hate the summer, don't you?
Yeah, I don't really like the heat.
It's been too hot, hasn't it?
It's more the humidity. But I mean, that said, I don't actually have very much experience with dry heat, so I might find out that dry heat is just as bad as wet heat.
What about the dry heaves?
Don't like those at all.
No.
Definitely.
When was the last time you had the dry heaves?
That's a good question. See, I used to kind of get drunk on my birthday, like so that once a year I would be tipsy or a little bit over tipsy. But it's been... Am I too old for that stuff? Is that what's going on?
Hopefully.
Yeah, and I don't remember the last time I was actually like sick, so...
Well, that's good.
It's nice, it's good.
Well, anyway, September's here. The light is different
September's here.
if the temperature is still hot. But we're getting ready for the municipal election coming up
We are.
in October. The weather will definitely probably change by then, and Jakob Vardy is here in the hot seat running for mayor of Toronto. Jacob, good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me back. I'm happy to be here. I'm in agreement with her, by the way. I much prefer winter and fall to summer and spring. This summer has just been crazy.
It's like lasted forever. It just seems like that Beach Boys, Endless Summer.
But last year, do you remember that everyone was complaining we didn't even have a summer?
No, and it was true.
Like, people will complain no matter what the weather is, to be honest.
Well,
I just...
Anyway, I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying every...
Well, I'm a Canadian boy born in the winter, so, you know.
You were born in... And where are you from again?
I'm from Kitchener.
Oh, yeah, Kitchener, yeah.
Originally from Kitchener. I live in Etobicoke now.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay, well, welcome. And we're going to get down to it. We're going to get talking about the issues here today, right? Because people want to know who they're going to vote for coming up.
Just leading right off, I don't know if you want to discuss this, but I was curious about party affiliation.
Sure.
Because you don't really have to have a party affiliation to run for mayor, obviously. But,
Maybe you should.
But most people do.
They do?
So you want to know which party I mostly align with? Well, if we're talking Ontario, it would be Progressive Conservative. I actually volunteered on Doug Ford's campaign this year.
Very good.
So.
And he's doing some wonderful things for the province.
And I've met him, and you know what? I will say this. He was very, very kind to me. And when I met him, we got to talk for about 10 minutes. He only talked to me about me and Christine Hogarth, who is the representative in my district, and I let him know I voted for her, which is from his party, obviously. And we only talked about me and her. He didn't talk about himself at all. And he was super, super kind to me. And he has that stigma right now where the media is not on his side, and he has a lot of haters. But as somebody who's met Doug Ford, I can say he's a really, really nice man.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair
So
enough.
how much do you think personality actually matters when it comes to politics? Because I know like a lot of people had problems with his brother that I don't know if everyone would say that they enjoyed Rob as much as you enjoyed Doug.
I wouldn't say it's personality so much as it's the media. The media decides how the public sees you. You know what I mean?
Well, but I mean, working with somebody is different from, reading about them. And you'll be working with these guys. Like, regardless, you're going to be working with...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm open to working with anybody from any side. Like, see, I don't really like political labels, and I don't like, pushing myself into that corner because I am open to everybody. And I can honestly say that. A lot of people in politics say that, but don't really mean it. I am open to working with everybody.
And I don't like the idea of party affiliations at a municipal level, but even at a federal, provincial level, because, the member of parliament or whatever is supposed to be there to represent the constituents.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. All the constituents, once they become a member of a party, they are representing the party line. They have to vote the way the party wants to vote.
Yeah.
They don't represent the constituents anymore. It's actually anti-democratic. To me,
Yeah.
the party system is anti-democratic.
Well, the thing is once you win an election, you're not just working on behalf of the people who voted for you. You're working on behalf of the people who did not vote you, which in every single case is more. More people did not vote for you than voted for you.
Yeah.
And to your point of, especially at a municipal level, to affiliate yourself with a party as well, when there's, in a city like this where there's over 2.5 million people, the vast majority of the people will not be affiliated with that party that you're aligned to.
Right.
So
Right.
you're just trapping yourself into a place where people are going to dislike you right off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
And the vast majority of people aren't going to vote in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well,
It's
you
whether
still have
they're-
to represent.
because I do believe that they deserve representation even if they didn't fulfill their civic duties necessarily.
No.
Yeah.
No?
No, I don't.
Just throw them out of the city? Or just don't give them garbage service?
They can leave the fast
That's
way,
it.
or they can leave the slow way.
It's
Yeah, you don't want to leave the slow way. That's Hugh hitting you with a spoon until you leave town.
well, my thing
It
is
takes
is
years.
there's a lot of people who don't vote because they want to send a message. And I believe that's part of a democratic society. In fact, I want to add a few things to the ballot in 2022 if I win this election. And one of the things I want to add is under each column, decline to vote. So if you want to send a message to whatever category it is, you hit that X beside decline to vote. Say you don't like any of the mayor candidates, you can hit decline to vote, and that vote is registered as you refusing to vote for any of them. And I think that's important because a lot of people who don't show up, it's because they don't want to vote for the people nominated. So why not give them the option to show up to the election and send that message by declining to vote?
Okay.
Now you're
Jacob?
oh,
What?
you want to go ahead?
Well, you're going off on all these
I
tangents
know,
over here.
I
I
know.
got
We
some
gotta
questions.
we got some questions.
We want to get through these issues
Yeah.
here. Jacob come back and
And then
have
he'll
a
be
little
like, we
free
didn't
for
talk about
all
anything
with you,
again.
Jen. What were you gonna say? I hate to cut you off.
No,
like
just
that.
so you're a Southwestern Ontario guy. I'm from London, and I lived for a while in Stratford, so I was around when
Okay.
Chris Rickett was getting going. I'm
Okay.
not sure what he's doing now, but you're probably aware of.
I withdraw the
Chris.
question.
Yeah, but I know that he was. So this is basically like spoiling a ballot, then what you're talking about.
No, it's not, because spoiling the ballot is not, they just get rid of that. So
Those are
what
supposed to be registered as well. I don't know if they actually
well,
are, but those are supposed to be
so
registered.
you can show up to elections and you can go through the process of declining the vote,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody does that. I want to actually add a check mark or an X box to decline the vote, so it's registered.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great.
I think that's a great idea too. I think every citizen should get an Xbox.
Now I'm gonna.
And
no.
a spoiled ballot also is when you write in like a joke. Like you write in a joke candidate. Like, you know, Harambe, the gorilla, a lot of people did that for the US election.
Right.
Was he
He
upside
got
down?
like 40,000 votes or something.
He wasn't upside down.
But they actually have a write-in column on the US ballot. We don't have that here. And that's another thing I want to add. I think that people should be able to write in a vote, and you don't have to vote for those nominated. So let's say you show up to the election in 2022 to vote for mayor, and you don't want to vote for any of the nominees, but maybe you want to vote your neighbor or your grandmother or your uncle or whoever. You have the ability to write that person's name in for mayor. You're not trapped into just voting for the 30 people that are nominated or whatever amount are going to be nominated.
And if am I right in thinking that if declined wins, then all the parties have to field new candidates? Is that
No,
That's not true?
decline. If the decline got the most votes, the message would be sent, but then it would just go to whoever's name got the most votes.
I'd love to find out there really is a person called declined,
Yeah.
and they're just
Yeah,
waiting
yeah.
for their chance to
Maybe
be in
what they
office.
should
That would
do-
be crazy if decline to vote won. I never even thought of that until you just brought it up.
Well, you could have a system where you rate every candidate from 0 to 10 and then add up the numbers.
I've
That
been
would be
asked that question a
very
lot
democratic.
lately.
Yeah.
See, I got an email about that because apparently they're doing that. You said you're from London. Apparently in London, Ontario, I haven't looked it up myself. They're doing that. They're doing a ranked system where you rank this person 1, this person 2, and they're tallying it up that way.
You know, we did try that once. We were trying to choose a band name, and we used that method.
Yeah.
Did it work?
Well, we got a name that was everybody's second choice.
See, I'm not a fan of the system,
No,
to be honest.
it doesn't. Nobody was happy with it. Okay, let's get down to these questions, Jacob.
But that's
right.
democracy. If everyone's unhappy, you know you've got a democracy.
Jan, let's get down to business here, shall we?
I think that you're cynical, right?
What? Okay, Jacob, police and public relations. Why is this important?
Well, I think it's important for the public and the police to be partners. And there's a stigma right now with young people. I can't speak for the generations above me because they seem to be a little bit better, but especially for my generation and younger, there's a very big stigma about police in North America.
A lot of mistrust.
Mistrust, and they don't view them as people who are there to support them or protect them or help them or any of that. It's the police are the enemy. That's the stigma they have, and it's a dangerous position to be in, and it's something that the Toronto police, and this is another thing I'll say, there's a game in politics. If I'm ranting, excuse me just for 1 second, I do have a point. There's a game in politics where you never say anything good about your opponents, right? And you never say anything good about the current system because you want to get in, you want to change, whatever. But one thing I will say that Toronto is doing a good job of right now is working with the police to restore some relations with the public. They have a lot of programs in place right now to work with people of color, work with the LGBT community, and work with the Toronto public in general. And that's something that I will continue to do if I'm elected. I think it's very important to fix that public and police relations, because no policeman should be, or woman should be, afraid of a member of the public and vice versa. No member of the public should be afraid of a police officer in this city.
Unless you're doing something wrong. In which case we want you.
Well, it depends on what you're doing wrong, right? Like there's different levels of crime.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Obviously if you're committing murder, then yeah, you should be afraid of the police because we want to get you off the street. But if you're committing, a petty crime, then I don't think you should be afraid of the police. You should face what you did. But one thing that I will say is one of the plans I have to fix public and police relationships is to actually have the public vote for the chief of police. That's another thing I want to add to the 2022 ballot. You can see that's a big theme for me. I want to change the electoral system, but I think the public should vote for their chief of police. And that's not a thing in Canada. It happens in the States here and there, but in Canada, no major city votes for their chief of police. It's always government appointed. I want to change that. I think the public has the right to elect their own chief of police.
Well, would there be any prerequisites for being
Yes.
a candidate for chief of police?
Yes, there would be.
Now, what about the current chief, Mark Saunders?
I'm not a fan.
Can you tell us why?
Well, I would, if I got elected, I would replace Mark Saunders as chief of police. And there's 3 things that I point to for that. Number 1 is the growing violent crime rate in Toronto. Right now, we have a higher crime rate per population than New York City, which is insane. We have more murders now in September than we did all of last year in 2017. And the gun violence is also way higher than it was in the last previous years. Another reason why I'm not a fan of Mark Saunders was the Mark Hayward incident. Are you familiar with that?
No, please.
Okay, so Mark Hayward is a Toronto police officer who wrote a public letter about John Tory and Mark Saunders, basically saying their policies are to blame for the growing crime rate and growing violence in Toronto. He called them names, which is, he probably shouldn't have done, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. He basically wrote this letter calling out John Tory and Mark Saunders. So then John Tory and Mark Saunders launched a professional standards investigation against this man to basically silence him, to basically say that you can't do that. You can't criticize us.
Right.
And I disagree with that because I think that a citizen, and a police officer is a citizen, has the right to openly criticize the government officials and the top officials in the city, which in this case, the chief of police and the mayor. And Mark Hayward had some points against these guys, and they basically shut him up. That's another reason why I'm not a fan of Mark Saunders, because I don't like the idea of saying, you can't criticize me, you can't criticize John Tory.
Okay,
Not
so
a fan of
that's
that.
one issue, but I think laying the blame for the entire increase in gun crime at, on Mark Saunders, I mean, I'm not sure.
It was on both. It was on John
No,
Tory
that's what he
and
was
Mark
saying,
Saunders.
but I mean,
yeah.
to blame Mark Saunders for this increase, I think it's a bigger, more complicated.
It is. I
problem.
agree. I'm not saying one man is to blame for an entire city's
Okay.
crime. That's a ridiculous claim, but the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And when the numbers are this bad, somebody's got to take the heat. And that might be the case here, where maybe he's not entirely to blame, but maybe he's the guy to take the heat.
Well, especially if he tried to shut down debate on the issue,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Well, yeah, and
Okay.
I guess I've always kind of seen the police in a way a little bit like the military. I mean, you're not allowed, if you're in the military, you're not allowed to speak out against the military, and there's been huge problems with that. We probably would have dealt with sexual assault in the military a lot quicker if people had been able to say something.
Let
about
the
that.
soldiers vote on who they're going to attack next.
That would be a very interesting system. Can I just ask you about proportional representation? The big bug in the
Is
room
that on the
all
list
time?
here, Jen?
Well, it's you're very interested in voting issues, and I don't know if there would even be an applicable application for proportional representation in Toronto politics, but.
So what do you mean? Can you just elaborate on
Yeah,
that?
so proportional representation would be like what Hugh was saying. You sort of tally up all the votes, and then you allot seats in. You basically allot seats in city council. Well, I guess because people don't have party affiliations, it wouldn't be necessarily that. But for say federal or provincial politics,
Right.
you would add up all the votes for the Conservative Party, and then they would get that percentage.
I've thought about this a few times. I mean, no matter what system you do, it's not going to be perfect, and everybody's going to complain anyways, right?
Yeah.
But it is something I've thought about. I can't say I have a definitive answer on it, but it's something I've thought about for sure.
But it sounds like you'd be just in terms of like politics at the next level up.
Yeah.
You would be totally happy working with with Doug Ford,
I would love to work with Doug Ford.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
and the good relationship between Toronto and Ontario is
Well, I
obviously
want
a
to
good thing.
segue
Yeah.
into that. I'm
Cool.
trying to get through the
Can I
list.
just,
Yeah,
can I
it's-
just quickly make one final point on
Yes.
Mark Saunders? The Toronto Police Association voted a no confidence back in February of this year against Mark Saunders. 86%. 86% of the TPA voted no confidence in Mark Saunders. Another reason why I think he should be looked at and replaced. And that 86%, by the way, 50% of the TPA participated in that vote.
That's
So-
it? Only 50%?
That's huge.
That's,
That's huge.
yeah.
That's only 50%.
But
Yeah,
but 86% of that 50%, Hugh, that's a huge number.
That's only 43% of the officers.
But usually when people vote, it's like in the 20s to 30% of people voting. So
just being-
that's a huge.
I'm
You're just
just-
being a jerk, but I like it.
Jacob, I'm sorry already.
No, that's,
Okay.
Sorry, you know me. I don't like to do things in the proper order, but I do like to get through everything. So I'm excited about this.
Why don't you try now then?
Okay. Well, actually, this is.
No, I want to talk about
yeah.
the City Council Court versus Ontario. Is this about the
slashing.
the
The
slashing of the
largest
City
numbers of-
Council?
Yeah.
Jacob, you want to end that lawsuit? You want to?
I do. I think the lawsuit is an irresponsible thing for Toronto to be doing. I have no issue with the city disagreeing with the slash. And I have no issue with the city holding a vote to say we disagree with the slash. What I have an issue with is them taking money out of the Toronto budget to go against the provincial government, which will cost money out of the province's budget, which is basically you and I are paying for this court case for a bunch of government officials to try to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Because to me, this isn't all the things that they're saying about, this is about protecting our democracy. My question is this, is how does this court case help a single citizen in Toronto? How does it help them? Because to me, it doesn't help. And another thing is that from everywhere I've looked at, all the experts are saying Toronto's going to lose this case anyway. So it's a dying battle.
Well,
that
the whole
they're-
thing could have been avoided if Doug Ford had left the city council the way it was.
But the thing is he aligned it with the federal and provincial wards. So if Toronto has 25 representatives at the federal and provincial level, they should have that at the municipal level as well. I agree with that.
I gotta say, from having been in several different wards in Toronto, I've never met my city council representative. I've met my federal and provincial representatives, and they have a lot more people to deal with. So.
Now you'll have an even less likely chance of meeting them.
Maybe we'll have a little bit more chance of them actually interacting with their constituents.
There was too many cooks in the kitchen.
All right. Well, let's get just one really good cook, right? He can make all the decisions. Maybe AI can do the job for us.
You need,
the money we'll save.
you need a second
This
cook
is
to do
the second time you brought up AI to
Yes,
me.
because I'm a big fan. Big fan, Jacob. Okay, look.
You
It's the
were
way of the
talking
future,
about.
right?
Yeah.
Can I see? I'm looking for segues. I'm looking for ways to weave the questions together. But if
Well,
can I-
make it work.
Okay.
Get into your segue.
Because we have been talking about crime, and it's been actually my impression that one of the reasons we have an increased rate of crime is this political divide that you're interested in between the left and the right, between the people who want one thing and people who want the other thing. It seems like there's a lot of conflict being stirred up south of the border.
Yeah, the political divide between the left and right now is pretty crazy, because it wasn't like this several years ago.
That's
and
true. It's way worse in the States, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's like kind of a global issue, to be honest, because like even in Europe, like it's getting pretty bad.
Yeah, we haven't had to deal with neo-Nazis for a while. Not in the numbers
Some
that
of
we
us
are.
have.
Well, you would prefer to deal with neo-Nazis. That's not our fault.
Well, what
I didn't say that.
what I think it starts with the media. The media spreads a lot of propaganda, but I think also a large part of the blame goes to the politicians themselves. They're very childish and they play this game of, we hate everybody on the other side. But, let's take Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, for example. Those two, they hate each other, right? But yet you can go online and find photos of them arm in arm smiling through their teeth from the 80s and 90s, right? Their daughters are best friends, but yet ever since Donald Trump's been elected, Ivanka and Chelsea have not been in contact. And they put this out there publicly, and that causes this divide because they know the citizens are against each other right now, the left and the right. So when Chelsea Clinton and Ivanka Trump, who are best friends, decide, because her dad is elected now and my dad's elected now and, we're opponents, we can't be friends anymore, it furthers that divide among the citizens, and it's irresponsible behavior on their part. It's a little bit disgusting, actually. And when I said earlier, I'm open to working with anybody, I don't want to be a part of this divide. I want to be part of the unity that brings us together. If I say I align best with the Progressive Conservative Party, that doesn't mean I hate everybody who identifies as liberal or NDP or whatever. I'm more than willing to work with these people to, have a structured government. Obviously, I'm running for mayor, but I'm just using this as an example. Because if you look at the House of Commons, they're like a bunch of children. They don't talk to each other to figure things out. They just yell at one another and criticize one another.
I think the party system is in part to blame with that as well, because of course they're all divided along party lines.
Yeah.
Whereas if they were all there to represent their constituents, then there would be no need for this.
They should be working as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the founding fathers of the states obviously they didn't want a two-party system or even a party system.
Yeah.
That kind of developed over time, but we imported it. Like we decide that's been a part of.
I think it's a way for
beginning.
elites
to keep the power,
the informal power structure, to maintain control over the formal power structure. That's what I really think it is.
Well, now how do you fit into that? Like you don't seem like an elite.
Yeah, no, I'm the furthest thing from elite. I'm it's everybody that's come across me so far. I keep getting the same comments of the three. I'll tell you the three comments I get most. Number one is, I had no
You're
idea.
so young.
Yeah, no, that's one of them. But the number one I get is I had no idea who you are, but looking you up now, I agree with a lot of what you say. You've won my support. So that's great. The number two is a little bit meaner than how you put it, is this guy just living in his mom's basement? And I take it as a compliment because they think I'm super young. Like I'm older than they think I am. But you know, the mom's basement, it's like, oh, he's like 19. You know, I'm turning 28 in a couple of months. And then the third one is, and this one, you know, I probably shouldn't even be saying public, but is, you
Come
know,
on.
well, the third one is, it's not your time yet, which I disagree with because it's just them again thinking that I'm too young. It's a lot of what they basically are saying is you're good, but it's not your time yet. Give it some time. And to me, it's like, why wait?
Well, the lesson of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama is if you wait for people to say it's your time, sometimes they don't give it to you when it's your time.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they give it to you early, you do okay. So
And look what happened when it was Hillary's time.
I know.
She blew it because of the Russians. The Russians blew it for her.
Yeah, make sure you keep to the paper ballot thing.
Yeah.
Please keep to the paper ballot thing.
Yeah.
What do you mean, the paper ballot?
We have paper ballots in this country.
Not for municipal elections.
We don't?
It's all computerized. It's all, I'm sure.
Okay, in that
somebody's-
case, make sure you hire some good hackers. I didn't say that. I did not say
Russian.
that.
No, only the Russians are good hackers.
Well, it's Eastern.
They don't even leave a trail.
But last municipal election, I voted on paper though.
I thought I did too.
I
Yeah.
didn't. Mine was all.
I think you can.
Are you sure you really
you have
voted?
access to both, but
I think Hugh actually just
Let's
filled
all
out a
pay
website
attention.
survey.
We'll pay
Was it on
attention.
BuzzFeed?
we'll find out in 6 weeks, right?
Jacob, we don't have a lot of time left. And
Sorry.
we haven't even begun to
I-
get through these questions because
I'm
of
going to
Jen.
blame myself. I hope this has been.
What
useful
do we
to-
got left?
We've got sex work. We've got. What are you going to do if it isn't your time,
Okay,
even if it is your time?
Okay, quickly. Let me just get
Come
to-
back. Jacob,
Yeah.
come back and we'll go through these and some other questions. But
Okay.
pick the issue you want to deal with.
Okay,
finally.
quickly for sex work, I think with the next step with the legalization of marijuana is to legalize all sex work between consenting adults. Emphasis on consenting and adults. The government has no business telling people that they can't sell or purchase that line of work.
I can
Would
get
you-
a job finally.
I would love to talk about it more, but because we're short on time, I'll just say that. And what I plan on doing as a Toronto candidate is if I get elected mayor, I will write a letter to the Premier of Ontario and the Prime Minister of Canada on behalf of sex workers and sex buyers, asking for it to be legalized or decriminalized. Can I just read my list of pledges quickly?
Yes, please.
That's great.
Okay.
What a good. That's
Sorry
a good way
that
to
it's
wrap
on
things up.
paper, but it's hard to memorize all this.
It's okay if it's electronic. We wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so number one, ask newly elected city council to drop court case against province of Ontario and to take a pay cut of $20,000, invest the money saved from this in transit, neglected communities, and disaster relief. Two, instruct city councilors to write and record weekly blogs and video logs informing public of their weekly activity. Three, fire Mark Saunders and name new chief of police. Add the following to 2022 Toronto ballot: a write-in vote for the mayor and city councilor columns, chief of police, and a decline to vote box for each column. Number five, continue the work with police of Toronto to restore public relations and build morale between public and police. Number six, work with TTC and city councilors to expand public transit and make it more accessible to public. Number seven, work with provincial and federal government as well as Toronto Police and new chief to solve the problem of gun violence in the city. Number eight, go over all bylaws and get rid of stupid bylaws such as Airbnb restrictions and other dumb laws. Number nine, write a letter to Premier and PM. We just talked about this. It's the sex worker letter. Number 10, give more supply to low-income families by building more low-income housing in the city. Lower the cost of municipal parking downtown. It's way too high. 12, inform federal government that Toronto will no longer accept asylum seekers from the United States, emphasis on United States, unless they can pay their own way and not take up Toronto resources or Canadian tax dollars. Number 13, instruct all homeless shelters to turn away refugees and asylum seekers from the United States. Toronto shelters are for the homeless population of Toronto and other citizens. Work with the community and community leaders to involve public as much as possible with day-to-day decisions of City of Toronto. And number 15, have an open door policy to anybody who wants my time.
Awesome. All right, I can
Fantastic.
honestly say that the next time we should start with that and then we'll have a million things to talk
Yeah,
about.
good idea.
So we should
In fact,
ask people to send in questions.
Jacob,
Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe you should come back. We'll do a whole hour.
Okay.
It'll be not a liquid lunch per se, but about your, just about, you know, you and your platform as you approach the election. You can use that as a campaign tool
All right.
to let people know who you are and what you're all about.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. You know, I think it's great that you guys are willing to have, you know, lesser known candidates on. It's helpful.
And we're going to follow up, maybe get a debate happening here as well.
All right.
You might not be as much fun as the ones who are like just way out there, but we don't have to have. We don't. We can have people who have sensible policies on, right?
Of course we can.
Yeah.
I don't see why not, Jen.
I hope they're sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Jacob, for people that want to maybe support your campaign or follow up with you further, is there a website or any other?
You better have a blog.
online?
Yeah, look. If you type in Jakob Vardy, Toronto Mayor candidate on Google, my Facebook's the first thing to pop up. My Twitter handle is @Jakob JAKOB, the number 4 TOR Mayor. So @JAKOB 4 TOR Mayor. Yeah, and if you look me up on the City of Toronto's website, it also has my email address. So if you want to email me questions, I answer everything I get from people. Every DM on Twitter, every message on Facebook, and every email from people regarding this election, I answer everything.
All right. Okay, Jacob, thank you for doing this. Hoping to get you back for an hour. We'll get into some more detail.
Yeah.
Maybe without Jen.
I was gonna say if it's an hour, yeah, you might not have to worry too much about me digressing.
I'll try not to talk as much in the hour.
No.
No, we
hear
want you to talk. That's
It's Jen we don't want to talk
It's
as
me
much.
that you don't want me. Yeah.
Okay, not really. Everything you said was funny. It was good. Okay, we're going
All
to take a
right,
little
guys.
break. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
We're going to come back with Samir and Noreen Ali, the chair and the program designer for TEDx, Don Mills. Know what I'm saying? Okay, we'll be right back. ThatChannel.com. All right, we're back on the show. We're having a good show today so far,
We
right,
are.
Veronica?
It's awesome.
I know,
It's
and
really good. It's fun.
It's getting better even
Yeah.
because we got Jakob Vardy joining us, who's running for mayor of Toronto.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, guys. Really glad to be here.
It's great. Well, you guys were getting to know each other a little bit, and Jacob, you're relatively young.
Yeah, you know, I'm at that weird age, you know, where the older people, they still look at me as a kid, but the younger people, I can't quite relate to them anymore because I'm in my later 20s, so it's that weird age, you know what I mean?
Do you find there's a difference with the younger generation today?
I think they're very opinionated, but so is my generation. I think that, you know, everybody has that voice now with the rise of social media and just how prominent it is in everyday life now.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, I'm a fan of it. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. But to be honest, like, I don't know very many younger people under their 20s. Like, my sister's 18, so but other than her, you know, everybody I know is 20s or older. It's like late 20s or older, more specifically. So.
Okay, great. Well, I understand you're also using social media in your campaign.
Right. You know, I'm doing it kind of low micro budget. Like, I'm self-funding. I've had a lot of.
Hey, that's what Trump does. He just tweets all day.
Yeah. Well, you know, he changed the game, right?
What do you want? Are you on Twitter or are you on?
Yeah, my Twitter's right there on the screen.
Okay. So is Twitter your best form of social media for yourself?
No, I don't get much traction on Twitter. I prefer Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel that I have several videos on as well. That's youtube.com/Jayvardy, JAYVARDY. You can find all my campaign videos on YouTube.
Okay, so let's talk about why. I'm going to presume that you're a serious candidate for mayor.
Serious enough to do it, yeah.
Yeah, serious enough. But you're doing it not. I mean, some people are doing it as a public relations stunt or as a joke or whatever. But you're approaching it with a serious intent. Is that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a political expert by any means. Like, my view on running for mayor is the mayor isn't a one-man show.
It
The
isn't?
No,
Not
I don't think so.
No.
My idea is if you're elected mayor, like nobody's an expert on everything, right? Like especially in a major city like Toronto, like transportation, housing, economics, like everything that there is in running that city, you can't be an expert on everything, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But my idea is if you surround yourself with the right people, you know, you could approach it as an everyday Toronto citizen with these experts' opinions, and you can collaborate to make the right decisions. You know what I mean?
Well, that seems contradictory to the approach that Doug Ford's taking. He wants to shrink the number of people at City Hall. You know?
Right. Which is something I agree with. In terms of an elected government,
Yeah.
you know, you don't need 47 city councilors. I actually did a video about this on YouTube, but
Okay.
you don't need 47 city councilors in this city, because if you compare it to the top 10 most populous cities in Canada,
Yeah.
Toronto's salary for a city councilor, first of all, is way more than the rest, and the amount of city councilors was way more than the rest. It's evened out now that the new
But what if-
legislation passed.
Okay, but what is the number of constituents per city councilor? Like, how does that
Like the
stack?
amount of population they represent, you
Yeah,
mean?
compared to
well,
other cities.
Well, Toronto is the biggest city, so they would be, especially now that it's cut, they'll be representing a lot more
Yeah.
than the rest of the cities. But, you're comparing it to the other 9 biggest cities in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And the average amount of city councilors that they had, the other 9, was 20.
Well, no, I know,
compared
but
to the
every city's a
47.
different size.
Right.
I would maybe make the argument that it's the important stat is how many constituents per representative.
Yeah, and that seems to be the consensus argument that I keep hearing from the other side, and which is fair. It's a fair point.
I mean, I even just think about Doug Ford's brother. I had a friend who was visiting a friend in an apartment building, and all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and it was Rob Ford, and it wasn't even election time. He wasn't even campaigning.
Right.
This is why people liked Rob Ford, because he was actually out there talking to people
Yeah.
that he represented. But what Doug's doing is making Rob's job twice as hard by
Yeah.
doubling the number of constituents that he's got to deal with.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
That
fine.
that goes back to the old conservative, smaller government. You know what I mean? But I actually have a funny story about Rob Ford. It didn't happen to me personally, but somebody I know told me a funny story.
Yeah.
So it's
can I-
You
hearsay.
want to tell it?
Yeah, I'll tell it. So what happened is, I work for a chef right now, and he owned his own business for a while. Right now, he's working the same company as me, but he was hiring or interviewing for dishwasher jobs.
Yeah.
And walks in a young African Canadian, about 17, 16 years old. And he brings in Rob Ford with him. And Rob Ford walks into the chef's office and he goes, "I personally recommend you to hire this young man."
Yeah.
This is just a guy that Rob bumped into on the street. He happened to be going to a job interview.
Yeah.
And Rob Ford walks in with him
See,
and
that's-
gives him his personal recommendation.
That is why people really liked Rob Ford, because
Yeah.
he would do that. He would
Right.
actually act on behalf of a real other person.
Yeah.
They connected. He connected with the people, and the people connected with him
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it was face to face.
Yeah.
What possessed you to want to run for the mayor?
It's funny. I moved to Toronto 4 years ago, and I moved right at the time that Doug and John were going for mayor. And if somebody would have told me, "Hey, you're going to be on the ballot next election," I would have. It wasn't even a thought in my mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the timing for this was right for me. I just graduated school in June. I'm working, steadily throughout the week, and I thought, you know what, I don't really have anything else going on. I have an interest in politics. I have ideas I think I can contribute, and the timing was just right. So I went and got my endorsements, and I signed up for the ballot, and this is what I'm doing until October. So
Okay, great. So, what did you graduate school in? Or
I
what's
actually
your
went
education?
to school for film and television production
Where'd you take that?
at Humber North
Humber.
Campus.
North Campus.
Yeah.
Okay. And where did you move from? Where's your hometown?
I'm from Kitchener originally.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
I went to Laurier,
Okay.
so I lived in Waterloo.
Waterloo, yeah. I lived in Waterloo for a couple of years.
You
too.
did?
Yeah.
What street? Blue Vale?
Rumelhart. Rumelhart Drive.
You know where Blue Vale is?
The school?
No, the slum.
Oh. I've been to Blue Vale, the school, but
Oh, okay. It's not that bad.
yeah.
Okay, great. So now, what are some of your ideas for
Yeah.
the city then?
Well,
or the issues that you think need to be tackled?
well, the big one right now is the housing situation.
Yeah.
Right? Housing and gun violence seem to be the big two.
Right.
And you said you're a real estate agent. I'd love to hear your opinions on low-income housing, but with all the asylum seekers being brought in from the United States right now, and the community housing resources going towards that, it's leaving a lot of resources not being used for Toronto low-income families and the homeless population that is massive here.
Yeah.
And Justin Trudeau just gave John Tory $11 million from the federal budget to go towards this.
Yeah.
But money doesn't supplement the housing resources. You know what I mean?
Unless you use it to build housing.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't know if
Right.
they've announced they're doing that, but that's
Well-
one thing that I have said I would like to do is build more shelters in this city.
Shelters. How about
Yeah.
homes?
Yeah, low-income housing
I mean,
too.
apartments, like living units, permanent
Yeah.
living units.
Well, according to the Toronto Star, 1 out of 40 housing developments signed by John Tory for building permits during his time as mayor
Yeah.
is considered affordable. 1 out of 40. So that's 2.5%. And I'll tell you this, the low-income population of this city is 20%. 20% of households in the city live in what you would call the low-income bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And yet 2.5% of our housing developments are going towards that demographic. It's not enough.
So it's a big mismatch.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just, to me, it's like supply and demand. It's a supply and demand issue, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, but of course, if people can't afford to pay, then
Right.
you can't, who's going to build those units?
Yeah, and that seems to be where the problem lies, right?
But it almost seems like people are working as fast as, like the city itself is building a lot of housing.
Yeah,
Almost as fast as it possibly can. I mean, you look out
Yeah.
any window, you're going to see cranes, right?
yeah,
And yet it's not enough.
yeah. Oh, it's all going towards condos, right? New condo development.
Well, but still, those are units that people are going to live in, right? That's
Yeah.
contributing on the supply side. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the.
Well, you're a real estate. What's your take?
Well, first of all, I'm really not doing low-income housing.
No, of course.
So that's not part of, resale real estate, which is what I do, residential real estate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in Toronto, the average price of a detached home is 1.3, almost $1.4 million. So we have a very rich city where people want to live here and they can afford to live here. But as far as the homeless and the low-income housing, I mean, I live in Don Mills, and the Don Mills Arena was a makeshift for the homeless people. Interim, they were going to another homeless shelter.
Right.
And it was just witnessing that as a neighbor. It was really sad, actually, and I felt really bad that these people we don't have proper housing for these people.
No.
And I personally think that, why don't they build a condominium building to house these people?
Well,
Yeah.
I think they could build
I'm not talking a shelter, I'm talking
like actual units.
like actual units.
But they could do it inexpensively. I mean, they could even do it. I mean, this is me because
Yeah.
I could live like this. Maybe don't criticize me for being whatever. But instead of finishing it all nice, it could be concrete walls as long as everything works.
Well,
Plumbing.
It's not about finishing it nice. Like, listen, you could put an IKEA kitchen in there.
But just to
you don't
keep-
have to do
Yeah.
high-end gold tops. You don't have to do
Listen,
that.
I've seen an IKEA kitchen. They're actually not bad.
Yeah, I meant it like
No, but I
it's
know-
not a custom kitchen.
No.
From a custom
Yeah.
kitchen place.
But give it basic,
You know,
basic
yeah,
functionality,
Yeah.
and keep the costs low, and let people
Yeah,
move
which is
in.
why
Well,
I said that.
It's really important to get them addresses.
Yeah.
Because an address is the starting point to getting either social assistance and or applying for jobs,
Exactly.
right?
So
'Cause
what's
without
the
your
real
address, you
what's
can't
the
apply
real
for jobs.
problem? Is it that our city doesn't have the money to build residences for people? Like, what is it?
Well,
I mean,
I
myself.
mean, this is where it
Yeah.
this is where it gets intense for people. But right now we have over 2,000 refugees and asylum seekers every night taking up shelter space, right?
Oh.
And you know, Andrew Scheer put it best the other day. He's the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, is that the vast majority of them right now are coming from upstate New York. And he said upstate New York is not a place where you're religiously, racially, or sexually discriminated against, and yet we're taking these guys in from there instead of, you know, places around the world where this stuff is a serious problem. And I understand there's a lot of intent. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my understanding was now Toronto's getting these people now because Quebec has taken so many they can't take anymore. So now they're sending them to Toronto.
It's getting up to that point here too.
Well, yeah, but they're I've seen. I think they're coming through upstate New York, but they're not necessarily from upstate New York. A lot of them
I'm just quoting what Scheer said.
My understanding is that these people come from all over the world. Maybe they've been living in the U.S. and now they want to get out, or they're not going to be allowed to stay in the U.S. under the new policy, so they want to come here.
That begs the question, though: should we be taking people from a place that the vast majority of us would consider safe? I'm sure there's people here that would argue New York is not a safe place for these guys, but that's the argument, right? Is it or is it not? And if it is a safe place, then, you know, we're spending a lot of resources on taking people from a place we consider safe.
Well, I would suggest, though, that, I mean, you know, in terms of the housing, as a housing issue, right, it's supply and demand, right?
Right.
We're building as much supply as we can, I think. We're building a lot of supply. We could probably be doing a better job for low-income people.
Yeah.
But then we have the demand. This is one part of the demand side of it, but, you know, the other side is the whole immigration thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then, you know, that's a big can of worms.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a federal issue.
Right.
But most of the people that come to Canada end up settling in the big cities, especially Toronto.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, immigration is a whole separate thing from refugees, right? It's a different.
But I think the homeless the housing problem is also an economic problem in the sense that, you know, why are there so many low-income people? Why don't we have more jobs for people?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have any comment on that?
Well, that's I wish I had the answer, right? Like, I mean, if we had the magic wand to swoosh everybody out of low income, we would do it. I mean, unfortunately, economics doesn't work that way, right? Like you said, there has to be, you know, you have to have the income to get out of low income, right? And it's, where do you get it? You know?
I'm just curious where you stand. I mean, there was a pilot project for a guaranteed annual income in Ontario that Doug Ford just squashed.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that sort of? That's kind of a major new initiative.
I understand both sides.
Yeah.
I come from a household where my parents were on social assistance, and I understand, like, it's very important for them to have that money coming in monthly, or else they can't live, right? But I also understand the argument of, why should I pay taxes to go towards this person's income while I'm working, right?
Yeah.
So I understand both sides of the argument,
Yeah.
and, you know, depending on my day, I lean one way or lean the other.
Yeah.
I can't speak for Doug Ford personally on why he slashed that. But that seems to be part of the shtick, right? Like,
yeah, but I mean, as a candidate, I'm just curious if you would advocate, you know, some kind of a policy like that, perhaps as a replacement for the welfare system,
right?
For example.
I'd have to study universal income more. I mean, it's a relatively new idea.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself an expert necessarily in economics, but I do see, like I said, both sides, and I'd have to study it more to form a more solid opinion.
All right. So, I mean, another issue. Let's just keep on talking about the issues, because the city does have some serious issues. One of them is also transportation, whether you're on the TTC or you're talking about regional transit like the GO system, or even driving a car. I mean, Veronica was late today because of the traffic in the city, and it's only getting worse.
Well,
damn bike lanes. Anyways,
No.
did I just say that?
Don't give the bikers up. Actually, you know what? I'm a biker. I don't like the bike lanes either.
honestly, the cyclists drive me nuts.
I have to
As a
say-
driver.
I'm a cyclist. I'm just saying.
I know,
Yeah.
but you know, the cyclists have got a different mentality. They're not abiding by the way they're supposed to be riding their bikes. They don't signal. You
I
know?
do.
I'm just saying, I'm on the roads a lot.
Okay.
What's worse is if you're in the Etobicoke area, a lot of the lanes, you know, they merge the driver's lane and
Yes,
biker's lane
yeah.
into one another, and if you get stuck behind a biker, you know, you can't get around them so
Pottery
easily,
roads,
right?
I don't know if you ever take Pottery Road, but going down, it's the bikes and then the cars.
But no,
But back to transportation.
see, I drive, right?
What
So-
do you see happening? What can we do?
Well, I'm a big fan of
Gardner, Lakeshore, what?
Yeah. Well, everybody says extend the lanes on the Gardner, but you know, where are you gonna get the money for that, right?
Well, maybe out of the pockets of the people who've taken the money
Yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah.
in the government.
Or yeah.
Where did all the money go for land transfer tax? Not one,
Mm.
but two taxes for buyers. I'm telling you, every member of the Toronto Real Estate Board fought that, and
Yeah.
where's this money going?
Okay.
Yeah. That's
You
another
know?
thing I like
Yeah.
to talk
so
about.
So those are big issues for buyers.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a.
Well,
what about
it's-
transportation? What are we going to do about
Okay,
transportation, Jacob?
Well,
Right.
quickly on her point there, one of the things I talk about in my campaign a lot is informing people. Her question of where's the money go? It's a great question. Nobody,
Thank you.
a lot of people don't know, you know, where is this money going? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would like to see the municipal government be more available in putting out their information
You
to
mean
the public.
transparent?
Yeah. Just put it out there, you know, be honest about what you're doing with the money.
I know what should happen. Okay, I just had an idea. You gave me an idea. City government should be a TV show,
Yeah. Well,
right? That way people can tune in
That
all
would be
the
a
time.
soap opera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially with them live broadcasting all the council meetings now, right?
Yeah.
Because they just started broadcasting it live on Facebook.
But that's
and YouTube.
boring.
Yeah.
You have to format it like a TV show.
Yeah.
Hugh.
Okay, what?
Like we can do it like this, right?
That's what
if
I'm
I'm
saying.
mayor and you're meeting with me, we
Yeah.
can do this.
This
We'll
could
just
be it.
talk and we'll just put it online.
Yeah,
Right?
that's it, right?
Yeah.
And then people can contribute.
Yeah.
Everyone can contribute.
Yeah, get the live chat going right here.
all
and-
that,
Yeah.
right?
So
That sounds fun.
let's go
Yeah.
back to transportation,
Okay.
which is
well-
a big issue for, I think, Hugh and
Not nobody else.
You know-
Actually,
and myself, because I'm on the roads all the time.
okay. Everybody. Actually,
Yeah.
you got to get around the city.
Yeah. But I mean, I almost live in my car. So
It's
like,
funny. I'm
out there all
always
the
I'm
time.
always asking my peers about
Yeah.
transportation because I know it's such a big thing. I drive every day. I have my
Yeah.
own car, and ever since I've lived in Toronto, I've had my own car. So I've never taken TTC. Like I've never used it. I've used it once to like go to
Jacob,
Air Canada Center.
Same with me.
Yeah. So I'm always asking, you know, like, what's your thoughts on the transit? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Like, what are the issues? And like, all my sources on that comes from my peers that I talk to, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the number one complaint I hear from them is the scheduling. It's they don't run enough, especially late at night and on weekends.
Yeah.
Which,
But what
yeah.
about okay, fair enough. Yeah, more.
Yeah.
It's going to cost more money.
Yeah.
Then you got the money issue to deal with.
And are
What-
you going to make it back? Like, is after midnight service, are you going to make it back with people using it? You don't know, right?
Well, you don't. They lose money on every trip that people take, anyways.
Yeah.
How about? But what about subways? What about public transit versus?
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm
more
a
roads?
big advocate for is I can't remember the exact word for the rail, but you know the rail idea to go from Toronto to Ottawa to Montreal, the 1 hour.
Yeah, the maglev,
Yeah.
the high-speed
Yeah,
train
yeah.
corridor.
I would like to see that get
Yeah.
propelled
Yeah,
because I think that's the way of the future,
yeah.
personally.
Well, look at the rail that's going along Eglinton right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's light rail.
Pardon?
Yeah, light rail.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's been ongoing nightmare
Oh
for
yeah.
traffic for over a year.
Yeah.
Well, I've been hearing about this rail to back and forth through these big cities for years now, and you know, they said 2020, and that's right around the corner. And now it's probably extended past that,
Yeah.
but like originally it was 2020, right? So you know, I'd like to see the progress on that get sped up a bit.
Okay, Jacob. What other issues would you like to tackle as mayor?
Well, do you want to talk about Danforth?
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to talk about that publicly yet.
Oh, the shooting, or
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, first of all, I just want to say that the way the community responded to that, I thought was great. And when I say community, I mean the people. You know, all the running for the victims and, you know, everything they did, all the tributes along the streets that they were doing, I thought it was great. I was not a fan of how the media responded to Danforth.
In what way?
I was not a fan of them using mental illness as a scapegoat. And just let me quickly derail for a second here. My mom, when I was a kid, she worked in a home for mentally challenged people, people with Down syndrome, and real mental problems. And there was more than one occasion where I would go to my mom's work for whatever reason, and I would meet these guys, and even they, and I shouldn't say the word even, but they knew that violence was something that was wrong. And these are people with severe mental problems that can understand the basic concept of violence is wrong. And yet the media threw out this term mental illness, and even John Tory said, oh, you know, we have to be understanding of this individual because he was suffering from mental illness. But mental illness doesn't cause somebody to go out and murder a 10-year-old girl. It just doesn't. And in that sense, I wasn't a fan of how the media responded. And I also wasn't a big fan of the media putting the killer's name and image everywhere. I understand releasing it initially, but it came to a point where I was seeing his face everywhere. And I watch CP24 every day, and I was seeing his face and his name plastered everywhere. And same with the Toronto Star. They were plastering it everywhere, which I think is disrespectful to the community to do that.
How so?
Yeah.
Well, this happens in the States more often than Canada. Like, we don't have as much mass shootings that they do, but there's a movement down there of you don't say the killer's name publicly, right? Because it's almost like giving them what they want. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the issue of gun violence in the city, it's another thing where, you know, people look for these magic solutions. And I did a lot of consultation with people about, you know, what is your opinion on what we should do. And the number one thing that I got when I was consulting citizens about this was, we need to take the chains off the police force. And I heard the word carding get thrown at me by so many people, and yet it's such a controversial topic, right? But what can you do to solve this issue, right?
So what are you recommending?
What would you do?
What would I? Well, see, I'm very much the guy that I do what people tell me to do, like in terms of, and what I mean by that is, like, I want to do what the people want done. So that's why I'm a big fan of consulting. So if and I talk to maybe 50 people, not like 5,000 or anything, but if a mass consultation came to, we need to take the chains off the police and we need to bring back carding in the city of Toronto, then, you know, so be it, right?
So you think that would have prevented?
I don't think it would prevent it. You can't stop criminals from doing criminal behavior.
Right.
Like, and let's break it down. The vast majority of gun violence in the city are one-on-one incidents, right? It's very rare for us to have a mass shooting, which is another thing. Like, that incident caused a lot of hysteria, but we don't have mass shootings like that. It's not an everyday occurrence here.
Yeah.
Most of them are one-on-one situations.
I think that's why there was hysteria, quite frankly, is because
Yeah.
it wasn't every day.
Well,
Right.
And it had targeted a really,
random.
a community that is really, you know, grassroots safe and, you know, family orientated and things like that. So I think that's where the hysteria
Well,
came from.
I'm still also, I think,
You know?
coming so close after
Yeah.
the incident in North York with the van running down
Exactly.
innocent pedestrians.
Yeah.
It's like people are going, is this
What's going on?
Is there something happening? Is this a new trend in Toronto?
And this is the thing. We can't stop people from driving cars. So somebody wants to, if somebody right outside that window could just start plowing through people on the sidewalk, what can we honestly do about it, right? Other than just hope that people don't do that.
I know, there's one thing we can do. We
Yeah.
can develop an AI that can manage everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, self-driving cars, right?
Self-driving everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Jacob, listen, we have to wrap this up.
All right.
I mean, it's been great, and I wish we could keep talking, but I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to come back.
And you can actually, if you want to come back during the campaign, if you want to come and have a bit of an agenda
Yeah, of
set
course.
out every time
Yeah.
you come, we can talk about specific issues and
Well,
stuff like that.
quickly, I didn't want to come on here and just lay everything out because you can find it on YouTube, and quite honestly, I just didn't want to repeat things that
Sure.
people have heard me say before.
Yeah.
But if you go on my Facebook, unfortunately, we don't have it on the screen.
Well,
but
just tell people what it is.
it's if you look up Jakob Vardy, Toronto Mayor on Google, Facebook's the first thing that pops up, so you can click on that. And if you go on my Twitter, that's right there. My Facebook link's on the Twitter. And you can find all my campaign videos on Facebook and on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Jayvardy, Jayvardy. And I have 5 or 6 campaign videos up right now talking about my platform and pledges. So give them a watch and, let me know.
Fantastic. Okay,
All right,
Jacob,
guys.
this has been great.
Sounds good.
Thanks
Good-
for having me on,
good-
guys.
Yeah,
Really appreciate it.
It's good. We'd love to have you back prior to October, so maybe we can talk about that afterwards. And good luck.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to take a little break here. I think we've got Reagan.
Just like the president.
Just like the president. And the synchronicities continue here on ThatChannel.com. We'll be right back.